Let's open up the next page, playlist.html, and now we're gonna make it responsive. So eventually it is supposed to look like this. As I'm going to shrink browser window, we can see how all the content on this page is aligned vertically. Alright, we're going to start with modifying paddings for the main section, as well as making those headings a little bit smaller on mobile devices. I will open up playlist.html, and right here let's find the main section and assign a couple of classes. So we're going to make top padding 24 units, bottom padding 12 units. On bigger screens, vertical paddings will be 16 units, and the gap between child elements will be 12 units, but on mobile devices, that same gap will be 8 units. And then as for the main heading, we're going to decrease the font size on mobile devices to 4XL, and on bigger screens, the font size will be 5XL. Then let's increase the margin from the top for this subheading. On bigger screens, we'll use 3 units. For mobile devices, we'll keep this margin as 2 units, and let's also increase the font size of this subheading on bigger screens by applying text LG class with the prefix of SM like so. Let's switch over to the browser and check the result. Next one, we're going to position this content vertically. To do so, I'm going to add grid calls one class to the wrapper which contains all that content. It is this wrapper, so here I'm assigning grid calls one class because we want to have only one column on mobile devices. The distance between child elements will be 8 units. And we want this grid to contain 3 columns only on bigger screens, so I will have to add a SM prefix to grid calls 3 class, like so. So right now we're seeing how all that content is aligned vertically on mobile devices. Next one, I'm going to decrease the font size for the lessons heading, as well as decrease the size of these icons. Let's jump back to the editor, and here for the lessons heading, I'm going to assign text LG class for bigger screens. And as for those icons, I'm going to use size 8 class on bigger screens, but on smaller screens, on mobile devices, I'm going to use size 6 to make these icons a bit smaller. And then let's just take both of these classes and assign them to the next icon in here. Next one, I'm going to decrease the size of these list items. First of all, let's find the markup of those items in the editor. Right here we have 3 list items. So for the first one, I'm going to decrease the font size of this text by applying text SM class. And for bigger screens, we're going to reset this font size to default one by using text base class. And as for this other label which contains the lesson duration, we're also going to decrease the font size, make the font color gray with a shade of 500, and on bigger screens we'll reset the font size back to default one. And just because we have 3 such list items, I'm going to copy over all those classes and apply them to the rest of elements. Moving on to next elements. So on mobile devices, I would like to reduce the gap between video player as well as this heading. And also we're going to decrease the level of roundness of this video player on mobile devices. Firstly, let's reduce the gap between video player and the heading by applying gap Y6 class in here. And for bigger screens, we'll increase the gap to 8 units. And to reduce the roundness level of video player, I'm going to assign rounded MD class, and on all other screens, I'm going to use rounded LG. Alright, cool. Next one, I'm going to zoom out a bit so we can see how this page looks like on tablet screens. And in here, I prefer to decrease the space in between subheading as well as the main content, and also decrease the gap between the sidebar and the video player. So let's jump back to the editor. In here I will just change the SM prefix on MD for gap Y12 class, so this gap will be applied on screens that are a little bit bigger than normal tablet screens. And just to decrease the spacing between the sidebar and the video player, I'm gonna have to change this prefix on MD. And actually, on tablet screens, I still want this content to be positioned vertically. So one more time, let's jump back to the editor, find the wrapper which contains the sidebar as well as video player, and right here, I'm going to change this prefix to LG. So we're only going to have 3-column grid on bigger screens. And this gap will also be applied on bigger screens only when we will have 3-column grid. And then as for the children of this grid, I want the first child to take up 1/3 of the width of the grid on bigger screens, and the second child is going to take up 2/3 of the width of the grid. So in total we're going to get 3, and that is exactly the size of our grid. Alright, let's take a look at the final result. On tablet screens, we're still seeing how the content is positioned vertically, just like on mobile devices, but as I'm going to zoom out and reach widths of bigger screens, the content will be positioned horizontally because 3-column grid will be applied. We can also take a look at this page from the distance. This is how it looks like on tablet screens, and this is how it looks like on mobile devices. Link to the source code of this project will be in the video description.